Hey guys, this is Gaijin Hunter and welcome to part 4 of the Monster Hunter Bestiary version 2024. In this series I'll be going over nearly 230 monsters that have appeared in the Monster Hunter mainline series. I wanted to make sure that this was uniquely something that I could do and include something new for everyone from beginner to seasoned hunter. I will share with you the English and Japanese names, the official nicknames the monsters have in Japanese, which are sometimes but often not referenced in the English localization, and really help give you some insights into how the development team is thinking about and positioning the monsters, as well as I'll give you a bonus fun fact for each one as well. In this part we'll be going over exclusively Flying Wyverns, which make up a huge group of monsters that you'll fight throughout the mainline series. When I say mainline games, I mean that I'll be excluding games like Monster Hunter Frontier and Monster Hunter Stories, which take place in their own respective universes. Without further ado, let's jump in. As I mentioned before, we're covering only Flying Wyverns in this video, which is a huge group, and in Japanese it's called Hiryushu, or Flying Wyvern Variety, pretty much as is. Now the best place to start, of course, is the start, which is the very first monster they ever developed for the series Monster Hunter, which is the Rathian. Her name in Japanese is Diodea, and the nickname is Mesukaryu. You'll notice that Karyu is used later to denote Rathalos, or the fire dragon, and this is the female counterpart to Rathalos. Fun fact for her is on top of the original Monster Hunter logo and the series logo is a Rathian. That's not a Rathalos, that's Rathian. She is the very first monster created, and from her all the greatness derives, so pay your respects. Quite early in the series when they first introduced subspecies, Rathian was of course one of the first to get one, which is the pink Rathian. As I've explained in other videos, in Japanese for subspecies they just use the appending word ashu, which means the alternative or subspecies, so the name would be Diodea ashu. And the nickname for this one is a nice one, which is Okaryu, O being a special reading for Sakura, which is cherry blossom. So this is the cherry blossom fire dragon, which in English just became simply pink Rathian. Fun fact for her, and I guess this is kind of obvious in hindsight, but I just never really thought about it, is that the subspecies for Rathalos includes both the pink Rathian and also the male version, which is the azure Rathalos, which we'll get to very soon. Rathian, of course, is also one of the few monsters that has a rare species, which is the gold Rathian. In Japanese, the word for rare species is Kishoshu, so it's just Diodea Kishoshu, and the nickname they use is King Karyu. Kin, of course, meaning gold, and Karyu for fire dragon. Fun fact for her is that she has a nickname called the Golden Moon, which is a nickname given to her for her gleam that shines in the light of the moon. In Monster Hunter Generations and All Generations Ultimate, she also got a deviant, which is a variant called the Dread Queen Rathian. In Japanese, they append very cool sounding nicknames to these deviants, and for this one it's Shidoku Hime. So it's Shidoku Hime Diodea, and Shidoku Hime means the purple poison queen. And when they say poison queen, they're not joking. She actually has 3 different tiers of poison that she can inflict. We've got the regular poison, deadly poison, and then the most fatal poison is the deadly or fatal poison. Yeah. If you want to see how it is to have your health zapped away, go fight this monster. And now, of course, we get to the series flagship monster, which is Rathalos, which is just the male version of the same fire dragon. In Japanese, his name is Diodeusu, and the nickname for this is Karyu, just simply fire dragon. Fun fact for Rathalos, and I'm sure there's a lot of them, is that he is, alongside Kelby, of course, one of the monsters that has appeared in every single mainline Monster Hunter game, and probably every spin-off as well, so calling him the series flagship is probably accurate. He does have a subspecies, which, believe it or not, is a flagship monster. This is a flagship for Monster Hunter G, called the Azure Rathalos, in Japanese just Diodeus Ashu, and the nickname for him is Sokaryu, Sol meaning azure, like azure in the color of blue. So this is the Azure Fire Dragon. Fun fact for this monster, but in the West, when they got Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, instead of having Brachydios on the cover, because it is the flagship monster for that game, for some reason they swapped them out, and they put Azure Rathalos on the cover instead. I don't know why they did that, but hey, the game sold a lot, so maybe it was the right move. And Rathalos also has a rare species called the Silver Rathalos, or Diodeus Kishoshu. and the nickname here is Ginkaru. So Gin is silver, where Kin is gold. Very similar sounding, I know. So the silver fire dragon. And this monster is kind of infamous. When a Rathalos likes to take to the sky and do sort of like a victory lap around the entire arena for a few times before swooping down, that in Japan is unaffectionately called the World Tour. And this monster has had lots of programming issues where he'll just do a world tour over and over and over and keep you waiting for several minutes on end. Rathalos, of course, also has a deviant, which is a special variant from Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate called the Dread King Rathalos, or if you see my previous tweets about this monster, I always call it Spam Lord, because this thing does take to the sky quite a bit if you don't break its wings. And his nickname is pretty cool. It's Kokuen-o, Kokuen-o de Odeus, and Kokuen-o means Koku for black, and N-o, N meaning flame, and O meaning the king, so the Black Flame King. Fun fact for this one, and I'm sort of kicking myself for the fact that I didn't buy this rare merchandise, but in Japan, Kotobukiya, which is a licensed sort of retailer for Monster Hunter merchandise, sold a shirt around the release of this game that accidentally put the darkness Road instead of the Lord. Because in Japanese it's Dodo, which is exactly the same for both phonetically. Unfortunately, 5 days later, Capcom did start saying that they were swapping them out for fixed versions. I kind of regret not buying the Road, because it's kind of funny. Moving on is Monoblos. In Japanese, the name is Monoborosu, and his nickname is Ikkakuryu, meaning the single-horned wyvern. Fun fact for this monster, but this is kind of like the original village boss of the original Monster Hunter game. And there's a whole lore and story about Kokoto Village and the Elder and how he spent like a billion years fighting a Monoblos. But one of the cool things that I've always loved about the series is that Monoblos has always remained a solo hunter-only quest. That's for historic and also just traditional reasons as well. Monoblos did get a subspecies called the White Monoblos, in Japanese just Monoborosu Ashu, and its nickname just appends the word white, so Haku Ikkakuryu, which is the white single-horned wyvern. This is one of my favorite monsters to fight in the series, made a wonderful reappearance in Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, and even in Monster Hunter Stories too. I got to use this monster quite a bit. Fun fact for this monster is while Monoblos is always a solo-only hunt, the subspecies, the white Monoblos, was actually in the Chinese game Monster Hunter Online, and it was playable with multiplayer, so I'm really hoping that this sort of opens the door for a white Monoblos in the future that we can hunt with other players, because I want to see the monster return to the main series. So with the Monoblos, of course, comes the two-horned wyvern, which is Diablos, which in Japanese is Diaborosu, and his nickname is just Kakuryu, which means the horned wyvern. I debated putting him first and then doing Monoblos, but Monoblos is kind of like the OG, and going from single to double made a lot of sense. Fun fact for this monster, while it does look like it'll bite your head off and eat it, and I'm sure Hollywood would do that if they had the chance, Diablos is actually a eater and enjoyer of cactus, which you'll see in the opening for Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate. He does have a subspecies, which is the Black Diablos, or Diaborosu Ashu, and the nickname here is Kokkakuryu, which means the Black Horned Wyvern. And a fun fact in this one that a lot of people know now, but this is technically not really a subspecies. This is a misclassification by the Hunters Guild. This is just a female Diablos during the mating season. It's when they're most irritable, there's lots of turf wars, and it's sort of a warning color sign. Their body turns black. Diablos was also blessed with a deviant, and this is technically a flagship monster, one of 6, for Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, which is the Bloodbath, or as I like to call the Monday Morning Diablos. In Japanese, it's got a really cool name, which is Oma Diaborosu. Oma is a very unusual name. Even in Japan, a lot of people were talking about it when they first saw it, because it's not a word that you would often see, which they like to do with the nicknames. But this would be something like the Massacre Demon, so Bloodbath is really quite an accurate translation. Fun fact for this monster, I guess, would be that this is my personal favorite monster in the entire series of Monster Hunter, including all the main games and the spin-off titles as well. It's also part of the inspiration behind my original character, which I used for Final Fantasy XIV, and I'll be using her going forward even in Monster Hunter games as well, which is Lily Bloodbath, the Bloodbath coming from this monster's name. Next up is everyone's favorite little rock who just likes to chill out in areas and disguise itself as a rock in the ground, which is Basarios. The Japanese name here is Basarumosu, and the nickname is just Ganryu, which means the rock wyvern. In case you haven't put one and one together, this is actually just an adolescent Gravios. They're quite different when they're little, young, timid monsters, aren't they? Basarios did get a subspecies called the Ruby Basarios, in Japanese just Basarumosu Ashu, and the nickname here is the Toganryu, which means the peach rock wyvern. Fun fact for this is from the localization blog for Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate from Andrew, who was leading the localization team at Capcom, was just how they came up with the localized name, because they go back and forth with the monster creators because they are part of the dev team who do the localization at Capcom. And they wanted to push for Ruby, but because it sounds really different in Japanese, it's Ruby, which is really cute sounding. They're like, well, it's not really like a cute cuddly monster. And they're like, no, that's not what it sounds like in English, trust me. And after some persuasion, they managed to get them to okay it. It's just a really fun, interesting story of the differences between language and just sort of the impression that we get from certain words. And I'm really happy that the localization team at Capcom has the trust of all the directors and producers that they can discuss these scenes in full to make sure that they're coming up with names that are on point but still get across in the native language that they're aiming for. Okay, when a Basarios gets all grown, it becomes a more aggressive and mean Gravios. In Japanese, the name is Garabimosu, and the nickname here is Yoroi-ryu, which means the armored dragon. Fun fact for this, and if you watch my recently published video on the evolution of monsters in Monster Hunter, you'll see that while it does share a lot of very similar animations like its charging and its hip checks, with Diablos you'll notice that that is for evolutionary reasons. They're not using the exact same skeleton, but they are distant relatives, and it helps explain why they fight kind of similar. Gravios also has a subspecies called the Black Gravios, or just Grabimosu Ashu. In Japanese, they just append the word black again, so Kuro Yoroi-ryu, which means the black armored wyvern. And fun fact is, just like Diablos and its subspecies, the Black Gravios is also technically a misclassification by the Hunters Guild, because the dark color comes from the chemical reaction of it pretty much bathing in molten lava at the volcanoes all the time, making it harder and just more aggressive. Next flying wyvern on the list is the Kezu, or in Japanese it's got the most adorable name, which is Furufuru. Its nickname, which was just recently given to it in Monster Hunter Rise after 17 years of not having a nickname, is Kikairyu, which is the strange or odd wyvern. Fun fact for this one is that because the composer is unknown, you can actually use its theme song, its background music for its fight, completely royalty free, which is awesome. I use it all the time. I'll play a little bit for you right now. Yeah, it's just great. Just so you guys know, Furufuru is quite a popular monster in Monster Hunter, and while some people find it very creepy and ugly, it also has a large list of incredibly adorable consumer goods, especially here in Japan. Kezu did also get a subspecies called the Red Kezu, or just Furufuru Ashu, and its nickname is Akakairyu, which is the red strange or red odd wyvern. Fun fact for this one, and I actually just accidentally gave it away in the original Kezu one, is that the Kezu for some reason never had a classification for its nickname, and they just recently gave it to it in Monster Hunter Rise. So Stories 2, which is the first game since its appearance in the last mainline game, included this red bad boy. It got a nickname there, and I highly recommend it. It's a really great monstie and a great ally, I'd say, throughout the mid to early end game. Continuing on with the strange and icky, we have Giganox, which in Japanese is Gigi Nebura, and its nickname is Dokukairyu, which is the poison odd wyvern. And for those of you who noticed the same nickname of Kairyu here for the strange or odd wyvern, it does share a common ancestor in the evolutionary chain with Kezu. It did also get a subspecies, which is the baleful Giganox, which is Giginebura Ashu, its nickname being the Denkairyu, which is a thunder odd or thunder strange dragon. And a fun fact for this one, I guess, would be instead of birthing little babies, the little Gigis, this thing likes to birth thunder sacks that go boom, so it's a bomb generating monster. Okay, moving on, we have another heavy hitter for this main series, which is Tigrex, or in Japanese, Tigrex. and his nickname is Goryu, which means the roar or roaring wyvern. A few fun facts for this one, but its name originates in Japanese from a tiger, because in Japanese, Diodeus or Rathalos is sort of using the name for a lion, for Leus. So they wanted this to be the tiger, so the tiger and lion, sort of like a really good juxtaposition of between, you know, the animal kingdom. So it was tiger and lion, so tiger and then rex, from sort of the wyvern rex that it evolves from, and also Tyrannosaurus rex. And Capcom, I will never let them down for this, keeps changing and flip-flopping on its name. The community at large used to call this monster Tigrex for a great long time, until the localization team said, no, it should be from a T-Rex, Tyrannosaurus rex, so it's a Tigrex. We're like, Tigrex? So finally wrapped our head around it and started using that, only for them to go and change it yet again when they finally had it voiced in the games and they called it Tigrex. So Capcom, you're at fault for this, so if you're saying this Tigrex, Tigrex, or Tigrex, you're technically correct. It just depends on what time frame we're talking about, but I guess going forward officially it's Tigrex, but you know, it is what it is. Tigrex does have a subspecies called the brute Tigrex, or in Japanese, Tigrex ashu, and it just like a lot of the older monsters, just appends a black to the front of it, so it's Kokugoryu, which is the black roaring wyvern. And I feel kind of bad for this subspecies that it doesn't have more popularity, and I think it's because it was a Japan exclusive monster for way too long. The theme first popped up in Monster Hunter Portable 3rd, which is famously not localized into English. Then the subspecies was kind of off the roster for the 3rd generation of, you know, Tri and Tri-G. And then it finally made a reappearance back in Monster Hunter 4, but that game was also not released in the West. Until eventually the G release, and then Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, when the West finally got to see the brute Tigrex. So I think this monster would be slightly more popular if it had a longer exposure period to fans in the West. And it's one of the rare monsters that has a rare species, which is the Molten Tigrex, or Tigrex Kishoshu. In Japanese, they just put the big Dai at the top of it, so Daigoryu, which means the large roar wyvern, which I'm a little disappointed in that name. It's kind of cheap. I definitely like Molten because of its explosive capabilities. But this is definitely one of my top 5 monsters of the series of all time. And the fun fact for this one is in Japan, a lot of its weapons or just monster itself is affectionately nicknamed Kitty. Not because it's a cat, but because the name in Japanese for a rare species is Kishoshu. So taking the ki from that and then the T from the Tigrex, and it's Kitty. It's a really cute nickname that I love. The monster was also given a really cool deviant in Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate called the Grimclaw Tigrex. Again, the deviants have really awesome Japanese nicknames or names that are appended. This one is Arakagizume. So Arakagizume Tigrex. Ara is the, not ara, I know where you're thinking with that, but ara comes from arai, which means rough or coarse. Kagi here refers to a nail, like a rusted nail, and zume or tsume, which is claw. Yeah, so the rough or violent nail wyvern, I think Grimclaw captures that perfectly. Fun fact for this one is you'll notice that its jaw and its claws and its wings and even part of its tail are blue. This is actually from the veins that are just engorged with blood because it is highly developed compared to a regular Tigrex. So that's what sets these things apart and gives them that really cool color. Next up, proving that just because the skeleton of a monster might be the same, they can be very different in practice, is Nargacuga, or in Japanese, Nargacuga. Its nickname is Jindyu, which means the swift wyvern. And this thing, although it uses the same skeleton as Tigrex, it fights so differently, and it's amazing when you consider its fun fact. There was only a 1-month gap between the release of the previous game to the G release, so when they had to make Nargacuga, they only had 4 months for the modeling phase. In fact, when they made the teaser trailer for the game, and they only had the red eyes of Narga going through the forest, they hadn't even completed the model yet at that point. So I think Nargacuga is a great example of how restrictions, both on time and also technical restraints, can really lead to some great creative things. I'm not sure the same can be said about subspecies though, because it's widely forgettable, which is the green Nargacuga, or Nargacuga ashu. Its nickname is Ryokujindyu, which means the green swift wyvern. I guess the fun fact for this one is that its stingers don't knock you back, they actually KO and stun you. But this monster, like, it's supposed to be more camouflage, like green in the forest. Before the target camera was implemented, it was definitely harder to track because it jumps around really fast. But yeah, there's really not much more to say about this one. But definitely, its rare species is worth talking about because it's awesome. The Lucent Nargacuga, or in Japanese, Nargacuga Kishoshu. And this is the one that turns invisible during the hunt and on and off. Its nickname is Getsujinyu, which means the Moon Swift Wyvern. And I guess in the same vein, this is where my fun fact comes from. The Lucent Nargacuga is often in Japanese referred to as Lunaruga. Luna being Luna for the moon, and then Naruga from Naruga. I love it. Lunaruga is a wonderful nickname, and I've almost always seen the monster referred this way. Being one of the more popular flagship monsters, it also got a deviant in Generations Ultimate called the Silver Wind Nargacuga. The cool Japanese name for this one is Shiro Hayate Nargacuga, and Shiro Hayate means the white gale. Shiro being white, and then Hayate being a very fast gale or gust of wind. And I actually struggled to find a fun fact for this monster. Even though it's very fun and the armor and the weapons are very cool, it is pretty much, as the name suggests. So Silver Wind is nicknamed after its ability to create really fast gusts or gales of wind that very anime style will cut through stuff and hurt you. Next up is the saber-toothed kitty, Barioth, or in Japanese, Beriorosu. Its Japanese is Hyogaryu for the nickname, which is the Ice Fang Wyvern. And the fun fact for this one is that it's really kind of a good oppositional monster to Nargacuga. Nargacuga is often referred to as like the Black Shadow or Black Assassin, and it, likes to fight camouflaged, where the Barioth is really in your face, hip checking you and pouncing at you. And even its theme song is nicknamed the White Knight. So I just find it very interesting how these two have nicknames that are, opposite of one another. Unfortunately, this monster also suffers for having a largely forgettable subspecies, but one that fought very differently, called the Sand Barioth. In Japanese, just Beriorosu Ashu, and the nickname was Fugaryu, which means the Wind Fang Wyvern. I did struggle to come up with a fun fact for this one because it hasn't appeared much in Monster Hunter at all, but it is named this way because of its ability to sort of generate sand tornadoes in the sandy plains. Whether we'll ever see this subspecies again, I don't know, but let me know down in the comments if you have any fun facts for this one. I was really struggling. Barioth is one of those special monsters that has a variant, which called Frost Fang Barioth. The Japanese name here is a little hard. It's a Hyojin Haku Beriorosu. Hyojin is like the ice blade, and Haku, it doesn't mean to wear, but it's sort of like, how a samurai or a knight has their sword attached like to their hip. That's what it kind of means, like it's equipped with or has. Fun fact for this monster is, although if you've played Monster Hunter Stories, one of the main characters, Avinia, she has a Barioth who she nicknames Frostfang. Which is funny because that's what they end up calling the variant, but these are two very different monsters. So hers is just a normal Barioth, where this variant came much later, so don't get them confused. And I guess it's another fun fact is that this monster is perfect for getting weapons with really high element of ice. So to me, it was kind of like the savior monster for people who are struggling with Alatreon. Now this next one, I debated putting Akantor and the next monster at the very end of the list because I feel that they are the biggest, most, strong and impressionable flying wyverns. It's just, they appear earlier in the series, so it doesn't make sense to put them at the end with all the more recent monsters. But a lot of people feel they got cheap shot here, that they were not classified as elder dragons because they don't fly. But we have Akantor, which is Akamutorumu, which has a really cool nickname of Haryu, which just means the supremacy or the supreme wyvern, and this thing definitely dominates. Fun fact for this one is that in Japan, it's nicknamed the ATM, which is an abbreviation of Akamutorumu ATM, and it is the Bank of Akantor because usually when it appears in games, its parts are huge and they sell for like massive amounts of zeni, like 20,000-30,000 zeni each if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, it's a great place to make some money, is just farming this monster. Now, where lore-wise the Akantor was like this legendary monster which was nicknamed the Black God, we also have got the White God, which is its ice counterpart, which is Ukanlos. I always have a hard time pronouncing the Japanese name here. It's Ukamurubasu, and its nickname is Horyu, which means the collapse or avalanche wyvern. And fun but not so fun fact is, just like Akantor, if you look at the ecology video or the evolution video that I did, you'll see that they are classified as flying wyverns for evolutionary reasons only. We're talking way back when the flying wyverns were there. They split off to some other evolutionary paths, so they don't have wings, they don't fly. So yeah, I think they should have been called elder dragons, but I guess they weren't. I don't know why. Maybe they felt that elder dragons at that point early in the franchise was still a very precious term they didn't want to use, or maybe they thought, going into the evolution would be cool, but they very much fight like and act like elder dragons in just how grandiose they are, so I petition that we get them reclassified. Okay, moving on to one of the flagships of Monster Hunter Generations and Generations Ultimate is Astalos, Japanese name of Tigrex. Its nickname here is Dendyu, which just means the electric dragon. And this aggressive bad boy, the fun fact for him is that the name in Japanese, Tigrex, is a combination of Dai from like Raiden for like electricity, and then the German pronunciation for insect, which is insect. So they have insect, Tigrex. So yeah, it's the electrical insect, and very much so. I love when you're fighting this thing. It makes these really like cricket types of sounds when you knock it over and it's flapping of its wings. It's very much designed as a bug. And it does have a really cool deviant, which is the Bolt Reaver Astalos. In Japanese, the name here is Seidenshu. Seidenshu Daizeksu, which means the blue electric Astalos, or the owner or lord of the blue thunder or lightning. Fun fact here is that, Jedi Master Astalos, as I like to call him, is the highest ranked in popularity of all the deviants, even higher than, Bloodbath Diablos, which is blasphemy, but, that's what the global fans chose. So it ranked 26 out of all the monsters in the 20th anniversary poll. So yeah, very popular, and I would not be surprised if they ever do find a way to bring back the deviants, that this is one of them that they'll bring back. Next up is the flagship monster of Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, which is Seregios, or in Japanese, Seregios. Its nickname is Seijinryu, which is the Thousand Blades Wyvern, because it does shoot out lots of its, I guess we like to nickname it the Pinecone Wyvern. Very cool monster though. And you will often hear this monster referred to as Steve. And where that comes from is there was, sort of the weekly Capcom community hunting streams, and they were playing Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, and Yuri, who was the community manager for Monster Hunter in the West, he was in a tough spot. He couldn't really talk too much about Monster Hunter 4G, which just had a trailer because it was pre-E3, so they hadn't announced it officially for the West, and so he just kept getting bombarded with questions. And before the stream, he was asked, hey, are you going to talk about the name of the new flagship monster? And he says, for now, how about Steve? And just to show how tight this community has been, we love and still love our community managers for each of the regions, and we interact a lot. It really took on, and now everyone just calls Seregios Steve, and that's where it comes from. It's a bird! It's a Bay-52 bomber plane! No! It's Bazelgeuse, or Bazelgeuse, or however it's going to be pronounced when they finally do it. Or maybe they already pronounced it and I just missed it, so let me know. But the name here is Bazelgeuse in Japanese. I always call it Geusu, but this is Gyusu, Bazelgeuse. And its nickname is Bakudinryu, which is the Exploding Scale Wyvern. Fun fact, actually, there's so many fun facts about its theme song that I'm just going to point you guys again to Davi Vask. He's got a wonderful video sort of breaking down from a musical composer standpoint all the different techniques that they're using in the theme song to really capture the personality of this monster, which he called the attention-seeking bastard, which I love. Unfortunately, like art and music, these are all parts of the franchise that I really wish the more mainstream players would latch onto, because I find it fascinating. So yeah, any opportunity I have to call out these wonderful creators and cool videos, I'm going to do. So go check out his video and let me know in the comments that you were sent here by Gaijin. He got an awesome variant called the Seething Bazelgeuse. This is Guren Tagiru Bazelgeuse. Guren Tagiru. Guren means like red or crimson, and Tagiru means to be like seething or boiling with rage. So yeah, I think the English name is short, sweet, but nails it perfect. A fun fact for this one, and I don't know why, but when I go to YouTube and I look at the Capcom's official stream where they were announcing sort of like all these stats, for some reason it seems like they edited their video to remove a lot of the stats. I don't know why. But if you go onto like the mirror streams from the Japanese creators, you can still see the original video, and it was listed as the 3rd most hunted monster in all of Sunbreak, just behind Lunagaron and Daimyo Hermitor. That was probably just because people like to farm this monster for its high threat ranking for the anomaly points. But yeah, I don't know why they removed that fun fact, but yeah. Fun monster, high threat level, and juicy hitboxes means popular monster to hunt. Next up is the flagship boy of Monster Hunter Frontier, which is Espinas, or in Japanese just Espinas, and its nickname is Ibararyu, which means the Thorn Wyvern. Some of you might not know why it's such a big deal that this monster in Sunbreak was such a big deal, but this thing has been the face and the flagship monster of Monster Hunter Frontier since Season 2. That's like 2008. So this is a very old monster, which is very iconic to the spin-off series, which is Monster Hunter Frontier, which was an online service game. So having this thing appear in the mainline series games was a great change, and I hope that, you know, it's a sign of things to come, because there's a lot of really cool monsters in Frontier. One of which, no less, is its subspecies, which is the Flaming Espinas. In Japanese, just Espinas Ashu. Its nickname here, I believe, is Kyokusaryu, which means the light brown thorn wyvern. A lot of fans just nicknamed this the Brown Espinas for a long time. So the name Flaming I thought was a really welcome addition and helps capture some of its aspects. And if it wasn't obvious with the collaboration in Monster Hunter World with Behemoth from Final Fantasy, between Yoshi P and Tsuji P, the two producers, they are friends, and of course Capcom loves Final Fantasy, so this monster has an attack called the Mega Flare, and that is a direct call out and paying homage to Square Enix monster Bahamut. I really hope that they bring back the rare species, because that's another really cool colored variant of this monster that I see no reason why they can't. Okay, going from monster I love to monster I don't love, we have Legiana, or in Japanese, Legiana. The nickname here is Fuhyoryu, which means the Wind Drift Wyvern. I guess semi-fun fact is that this, you can tell from the render here, but it shares a very similar skeleton to Rathalos, which is interesting. But the fun fact that I will give this monster is that Odogaron likes to kill and hunt these things and drag it down to its lair in the Rotten Vale, and if you do come across one of its corpses down there, you can actually carve it for a free material. So thank you, Doggy Boy Odogaron, for the free mats. And I don't know if we did something wrong and we had bad karma coming to bite us in the butt, but we got the most annoying monster in my opinion, which is the Shrieking Legiana, which is a variant of the monster in Iceborne. The nickname here being Itesasu Legiana. That would be something roughly like the Piercing Freeze Legiana. And the fun fact for this monster, I also struggled with quite a bit, so let me know if you guys have a fun fact for this one. So the only one I'll give you here is that, you know, where sometimes variants or subspecies might, you know, act very differently from the regular normal ones, these seem to have quite a good relationship with the normal Legiana, because, you know, in battle they'll do their really high-pitched call and they'll call in normal Legianas to fight alongside it. So I don't know, maybe they're seen as pack leaders, maybe they're seen as like alphas or something, but yay, nothing's more fun than 2 or 3 Legianas at once, right? But one of my favorite ones from that generation is Paolumu, or Paolumu is the Japanese name, and its nickname is Fukuryu, which means the floating wyvern. This thing is adorable. It's like a mix between like a bat and a rat. Interesting thing here is you see like the wings look very similar to that of a Puke Puke, but they're not related in any way whatsoever. Honestly, the best fun fact for this one is go play Monster Hunter World and watch it get in a turf war with Odogaron, and it just plays with it like a dog with a chewy toy. It is hilarious to see him just, you know, dragging him around and jumping around with him. I feel bad for the monster, but it's also cute as all get out. This cutie pie also got a subspecies in Iceborne called the Nightshade Paolumu, or in Japanese just Paolumu Ashu. and its nickname is Fumindu, which is the floating sleeping wyvern. It's got a very cute ecology video, so I encourage you to go and look it up on YouTube and watch it if you haven't seen it already. The fun fact for this one is probably its English name. I'm going to assume that Nightshade is taken from belladonna, which is a toxinous plant. And considering that the scene has a gas that puts people to sleep and is a toxin, I imagine that's where the name came from. And our very last flying wyvern is Rey Dau. Rey Dau is the Japanese name for it, and the nickname of Kodairyu, which is the bright thunder dragon. This render gives me no joy though, because it's so horizontally long, it's very hard to fit on a page. So yeah, creator problems here. And we really don't know much about the monster. We were able to fight it in the demo for like the open beta for Monster Hunter Wilds, and it was fun. But I guess the fun fact I'll give it, I believe it was Heijay and Rurikhan were doing a stream, and they referred to it as the Thor Magala, because when Rey has its horns pointed inward, it kind of resembles the silhouette of a Gormagala, and Thor obviously for the Lord of Thunder. But yeah, that's going to be my fun fact for Rey Dau. We don't know much about this monster other than it's the apex monster of the first area in the game, and we'll have to wait until 2025 to learn more about it. Anyways, that concludes this video of all the flying wyverns. Let me know down in the comments below if I have any fun facts that I missed over, or if you found anything really interesting here. Part 5 is going to be the final part of this bestiary. I might do a small bonus video at the end, I'm not sure yet, but the final video, which I hope you look forward to, is covering elder dragons, of which there's about 50 of them, just like there was for the flying wyverns, so it might take some time to compile, but yeah, I'm looking forward to making it and hope you look forward to listening to it. In the meantime, if you haven't checked out, I did a video on the evolution and the evolutionary chart for monsters in the series, which I think is really interesting, so please check that out. Hopefully we'll get another demo for Monster Hunter Wilds and I'll do a video talking about it, but some people are not aware that I do a podcast with Rurikhan. The videos live on his channel since he does all the production of it and all the creation, but we're on like episode 80 something. So every so often we'll do a long form podcast, 2 to 4 hours, where we talk about all things Monster Hunter. So if you want to know about my thoughts about the previous beta for Monster Hunter Wilds, I didn't have enough time to record footage and do a video, but I did talk in length on the podcast, again, Third Fleet Podcast, and you can hear my thoughts there. And we're also on most podcast platforms as well, so look that up if you want. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and until next time, happy hunting.